Good morning, folks. So, yesterday on our drive up to get stuck in the snow in the woods expedition, we brought along some of this chicken from the deli out of the grocery store, and that's always pretty good stuff. It's fried chicken, hard to beat that. And we brought up some of this trail mix type stuff. It's got candy and nuts and raisins, and that's all good. And then we brought up some of these. These are, I don't know if that's a Z or if that's what letter that's supposed to be. Maybe it's supposed to be an E. I don't know. But they're potato chips that taste like crawdads. They are New Orleans kettle-style spicy Cajun CRAWTATERS, naturally and artificially flavored. And, potato chips that taste like crawdads doesn't really sound like something that would be good. Doesn't sound like your normal potato chip flavor at all. But you know what? They weren't that bad. They weren't at all. They were much worse than bad. They were horrible. Think of the most awfulest thing you can taste and then triple that nasty taste. If you were out there trying to catch raccoons, that would probably be good bait. They taste like fish food. They smell like fish food. They are nasty. We won't be bringing those again. And then, they're fresh too. I mean, they've only been expired for a year. So I don't know why they would taste like that. I just cannot figure out what they could do to potato chips to make them taste that awful. Ho, 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 ho. Today, talk about a nice day. There's no wind, sun is out, blue sky, really no clouds any direction I can see. But it got cold last night. This morning, as the sun was coming up, it was 3 degrees Fahrenheit. And before the sun come up, it was 5 degrees. So it's almost noon now, 11:30 I think. I'm holding off doing this until it warms up a little bit. With Cindy's truck here, it's up on blocks, because for a couple of years now, there has been a power steering leak that we couldn't find. And I tried to fix it several times. We took it to a mechanic for other problems, and he looked at it, and he couldn't find it either. It wasn't real obvious, but it is now. The power steering hose has a split about a ½ inch long, so it's running out the bottom fast so you can pour it in the top. And it's one of those, it's buried way down under in there. I mean, way down deep under there. And it's not going to be a fun thing at all. I was able to get the clamps loose, but I couldn't get the ends of the rubber line off the hoses, off the steel line. So I'm not going to do it until it warms up just a little bit. I got to cut the rubber off of those and put a new hose on there. Surprisingly enough, the auto parts store actually had one in stock. I didn't figure they would. That can't be a real common part to go bad, but they had one. So hopefully get that done today. But today, I don't know what all I'm up to. Not a whole lot. Just kind of waiting for things to warm up a little bit. Not very exciting day. Yesterday was fun. But, I had a couple of people tell me, well, those guys should have had tire chains. Yeah, they should. But those are big tires. Those things come up over my waist. They're at least 40-inch. They might be taller than that. That's a lot of money in tire chains. But if you had some of those, it had those big grabber spikes like the logging skidders and things have. I'm talking spikes an inch, inch and a half long. Those trucks would really go. They go as it is. But what happens is the snow builds up underneath the center. And it doesn't matter how much traction you got, it's just going to stop you eventually. And then too, you got to remember, even though those tires are huge, they're at least 40 inches tall, that puts the middle at 20 inches where your axle and your differential is, and that pushing through 3 feet deep snow, you're not going to go very far with wheels. It's just not going to happen. On Jeff's tracks over here, I'll show you the difference here. These things, there is no axle underneath it. It's got lots and lots of clearance, and the wheels, or the tracks, attach on the upper part of that triangle shape, so they're way up above the ground level. And then underneath these side-by-sides too, they're smooth. There's nothing under there to hang up. So if you get up there, where you are bottoming out onto the snow, the whole underside of that kind of turns into a sled, and then you're just kind of paddling along with those tracks. This thing can go a long ways, even in really deep snow. It works it pretty hard though. I don't, it's a borrowed machine. I don't push it any harder than I need to. But even in the back end here, see how that is? It's got a little bit bigger axle in the back, but it's got really nothing to hang up. Like I say, there's nothing that snow won't stop eventually, but you can go a long ways with this. And without this, I think those guys would have probably been in trouble. We went over the top side of that pass down the other side, and you got to come back, got to go back up the hill. That road's really narrow and it's cliffy on one side, and no place to turn around. We had to go probably another mile deeper down to find a spot to turn around. And Jeff went back and forth packing the trail down with this thing so that those guys could do it. And I mean, I'm not saying those ain't amazing machines, because they are, but tires are just limited. You can't go anywhere with tires like you can this. And even this thing, we have got it stuck a couple of times, and that's not a lot of fun either. Man, what a pretty day. Well, shoot. I don't think it's going to get any warmer. It's about 12:30 right now, and going to start going back the other way probably. So, go replace that line, but like I say, that don't make good videos and pretty boring. Look at the glare off of that snow. Got a crust of ice on top of it. Sure makes getting around in that really hard to do. Later in the day now, and I just gotta say that that power steering line that I had to fix, that was such a nightmare trying to get that off that I thought it was going to take me hours to get it back together, and got it back on there in like 10 minutes. No problem at all. Why? Why did it take so long to take it off and just slip back on there? And no troubles on the once I put it back on. But I'm glad it was that way, but why does that work like that? And then I filled it up with power steering fluid, and the started up the truck and went to turn the wheel. It won't move. It won't even budge, and it's squealing really loud. And I tried going the other way, and it still won't budge. And both arms just pulling on that thing. It finally went just a little tiny bit, and finally got it to turn all the way around one direction. Then it wouldn't go back the other direction. Kept fighting it back and forth, and I thought, man, I don't know. I hope her steering box isn't cooked inside and not going to work anymore. Turns out all it is air. And one thing I really like YouTube about too is you can look up stuff like that. I looked up my power steering pump is dry. Now it won't turn. What's the problem on my phone? First off, and it sent me to a whole bunch of YouTube videos, and it says all it is air, and you got to bleed the air out. I thought, okay, I've bled brakes, I've never bled power steering before, and how do you do it? Well, you're supposed to use a vacuum pump, which I ain't got a vacuum pump. So I finally found one video. It said just keep turning that wheel back and forth over and over and over, and so that's what I did, and it took at least a half an hour, and it finally got where I could turn it pretty easily. It was still stiff, but it was going to work, and so I decided, well, her windshield wiper blade is shot too, so I'll drive it into town and see what it's going to do and get a new windshield wiper blade. By the time we live 5 miles out of town. By the time I got 5 miles into town and probably another mile on the far side of town to the parking lot, it was steering pretty easy. So I popped open the hood and looked, and sure enough, inside your filler cap, there's little bitty bubbles in there, and sat in the parking lot and turned it back and forth a few more times, and went in, got the window wiper blade, and come back out and put that on and drove home. Now it's working just fine. So I'm hoping that that's all it was. It's been several years. We went over to see my mom, and we stopped by Hillbillies, coming and going, and saw them, and it was leaking clear back then, pretty badly. And we never could find it. We took it to a mechanic. He couldn't find it either. I think it was just a tiny little pinhole that you couldn't see, but the fluid was leaking out, and fairly quickly. But it was dripping, but you couldn't tell where the drip was coming from. And now it's got a split about maybe not quite a half-inch long, and it was spraying out, so that was easy to find. So I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that that's all it was, because that was a $15 part plus the cost of the power steering fluid. So I hope that's all it was. Oh, anyway, take a look at these mountains. The sun's going down. Gonna get cold tonight. Not much in the way of cloud covers, but ain't that pretty? When those mountains have snow on them, man, they just pop out against the sky so much. Very pretty. Anyway, folks, see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.